the most crucial element in the positioning of our brand is better communicating the wins of our clients.
Welcome to the Real Estate Executive Thought Leadership Podcast, a commercial real estate industry show featuring insights from executive thought leaders.
In this episode of RE EXEC TL, we talk with Jake Ammon, CCIM, Vice President of Addison Commercial Real Estate in Jacksonville, Florida. In the interview, we learn about his background in the military and the transition to a career in CRE investment sales, the importance of relationships and personal contact, and why it's crucial to go above and beyond what competitors are willing to do. We also look at why Jacksonville is an ideal market for operators and investors, how to have fun despite economic challenges, and why communicating results is an imperative in brand building. Let's get started. Hi, Jake. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kirky.
How you doing today?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you. So let's start with your professional background. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into commercial real estate?
Sure. Yeah. I'll actually start on my journey a little bit further back. Today, I'm a commercial estate advisor and investor, but my story starts before I was actually born. So it starts with my dad. Unknown to me for the majority of my life, my dad actually ran a construction company in Dallas back in the 80s and building houses, renovating historic buildings. And again, for the most of my life, I did not know this because after savings and loans, all that happened in the late 80s. And I was born shortly before that. So then he moved on to another line of business and I didn't have any exposure to that. But to bring that up to say that through exposure to entrepreneurialism and some of his skills that he didn't even have to say that he did that stuff, just through his kind of passions, I didn't even realize it until after getting out of the military that really, truly, I have a passion for commercial real estate, very similar than he did. So it was cool how it was just only in the last few years that he's really opened up and shared about a lot of that. It was just some personal struggles and things that happened during that time that he didn't unload on us as kids. And I can appreciate that. But it's cool how this has come full circle and we can share that passion. I think that's where a lot of elements of my passion come from in that. So fast forwarding now to my professional background, I made the jump to commercial real estate out of the Navy back in 2016. I was active duty Navy and it took about 2 years to do some research on what I wanted to do outside the Navy. And that's where I became a broker in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I loved the business. It was at the kill what you eat. It's definitely a brutal business, but it was my business, right? I operate with somebody else, but it's underneath somebody, but I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. So I did a slew of different office, retail, leasing, sales, just the wide gamut there. And then we eventually moved back to Jacksonville, Florida. That's where my first duty station was when I was on active duty. A lot of great opportunity happening there, and as well as we just really enjoyed the Jacksonville area while we lived there. That was 2018. We moved back to Jacksonville, and at the time I was focusing on multifamily. There's a lot of great opportunity there, but just what I ended up gravitating back to is really that office and industrial, the full service brokerage line of work, right? So I'm not just a tenant rep agent. I'm not just a buyer side. Just with the clientele that we have, it's come out to be we do the leasing, sales, dispositions, and then I've even assisted now with some of the management and understanding that a little bit better. So I've been with Duke Addison here at Addison Commercial Estate for about 4 years, really focusing on the investment assets and brokerage needs that go around that. So it's been a total of 7 years in the business. 2 years ago, I got the CCIM designation. And so really what we do most of the time is existing buildings right now is what we're focusing on.
So let's talk about your company. You already touched on it a little bit, but what does your company offer and who do you serve?
Okay. We offer a peace of mind for our clients and partners in operating and managing their assets. And most of those assets, again, tend to be the value add industrial and office investments. And I would say the way I would frame it is it's not always the class A types of properties, but I think that's where the most value add can be attained in investments. So the majority of our clients are private investors, private investment companies, and then a handful of private equity funds. And then by the nature of what we do, we also represent local and regional companies with site selection for leasing or helping them acquire a building, or they're selling their building as a corporation. So got a wide gamut, but I would say then investor heavy on our client list. And then outside the traditional brokerage and management, we own and operate properties ourselves, or we act as the operating partner within a syndicated deal.
How do you do things differently? In other words, how do you differentiate?
We do from soup to nuts on the value add investment opportunities, right? So that's everything from identifying the opportunity to obviously negotiating the contract, leasing up, and management, and then ultimately disposition. The reason why that's so significant is oh, we're going to hand you off to the leasing department now. No, we pretty much do everything. And then when that's super valuable when it comes to the sales side of things, we were the ones that did the leasing, right? And so then we know what the leases are versus, oh, like I read the lease and I know what. No, we know the leases. Those are the ones we implemented. And I would say two key differentiators. I kind of mentioned that, but is that I guess we've got the team. We're willing to help our clients be market makers. What I mean by that is we don't mind pushing the limits, whether it be the lease rate, minimizing the TI that's typically in the market. We would do $15, sometimes larger packages happen, but we don't mind pushing the limits a little bit as long as we know what the needs are on both sides. And that's not just pillaging tenants, it's hearing what the needs are and saying, hey, this is what gets us the best value for everybody there. And we can do that very efficiently. And then also the second thing I would say is our ability to see and capture that value. And I think where we're going in the 21st century is digitization of everything, but it's still hard to beat in person, putting eyes on, seeing something and saying, hey, that 2D drawing is wrong. Or they say it's 1,000 square feet. That's not 1,000 square feet. And just when it comes to the personal aspect is actually showing up to client. There's the number of competitors that would hand the keys or the code to somebody to go look at the space themselves. We make it a policy across the board as much as we can to actually show up to tours. And where that single 1,000 square foot or too smaller kind of space may seem like, oh, that's not worth it's for our client. And if that's what the need is to be able to make that happen, we show up for that. And I think to be able to recognize the number of times, well, we were only looking for 1,000 square feet and it's turned into 7,000 square feet. We took the time to do that. And I think that's how we're willing to go above and beyond what the typical on the brokerage side, what they're willing to do. And I think that echoes in within our operating management side of things is we don't just say, oh, hey, everything's good. No, we put eyes on the property. We went ahead and got a second or a third quote on something just to make sure you're getting the best value there.
Okay, so here's something that you and I have talked about before. What makes Jax a great market, the Jacksonville area, for investors from in the area, then also coming from out of the area that are either looking for developed space or undeveloped lands? Let us know why investors should consider Jacksonville.
Okay. Jacksonville is a very attractive employment market. And also, it's very attractive from just a quality of life perspective. And that is some of the fundamentals that tie into where companies going to go, right? Because investment properties will only thrive when you have demand for those spaces. And so again, back to that micro level of foundational pieces of why Jacksonville has been a great place to live has been cost of living. Being in a no income tax state has been very beneficial. So almost no matter where you go in Florida, that's there. And then competitively or relative then to those other Florida markets, we're still very cost effective is the best way to put that. And then also just from a traffic perspective, from not being behind on infrastructure, we're making some very wise moves when it comes to the highway systems and other improvements that it still feels like we're behind, but we're not nearly as deep of the catch up as other cities would be. And then also too, it's just, if you don't like it right here, then you can try the other side of the city and still be a 20-30 minute drive from where businesses are. And then it's a 30-minute drive to the beach, generally speaking. So that's always a nice thing.
You've noted that it's strong for logistics as well.
Yes. So that's where on the infrastructure, I'll harp on the Jax port. We've deepened the port. We've just additional inventory on warehousing on the north side. And then we've got the labor to be able to support all the logistics, kind of those requirements that come about, where I think a lot of people try to compare us to the Savannah port or the port of Charleston. Whenever ships are pulling in, basically we've got, in simple terms, we got 2-lane road versus a single lane road that they have. And then we have minimal days down or minimal no-go days based on our weather's better, basically. And so we have more capacity. And then now, again, the deepening was one of the limiting factors. We've gotten rid of that. We're even going to be raising some of the big power lines that come across from the utility. So we're literally moving barriers out of the way for logistics to further expand here. And when you can cover, I'm sure the number's now up to probably 30% of the U.S. population within an 8-hour drive for trucks, that just makes this an ideal position to be for a wide range of industries.
Can you share a little bit about any interesting projects or deals you're working on?
Sure. We have a new construction. We don't do a lot of new construction. Most of the stuff we deal with is existing, but we have a industrial concrete tilt-up opportunity. So it'll be Class A, but with the market and the demand and the only amount of area that we were able to procure for that particular site, we're helping our client maximize rentable square footage out of that. And so we are now talking multi-tiered layers or floors for the industrial. We're going to have traditional next to a multi-layered, but it's a concept that's not commonly seen. So we're really just melding two ideas together there. And so we are still at the early stages of that, but that looks like that's going to be moving forward. So that's going to be a total of about 120,000 square foot rentable square footage. So that's kind of where one of our better clients said, "Hey, I want to build something. What can we do?" And I would say the majority of the market, they're doing this as cheaply as they can, as quickly as they can, and as big as they can on the tenant demise sizes, where we are pairing something that's really needed in that market, which is the smaller demise spaces. Again, and how do we get more return out of this opportunity, multi-layered on the multi-storied opportunity, to really squeeze out the best that we can out of this opportunity? And I don't know of anybody else that's doing this, and that's where I think that kind of that epitomizes what we're willing to get creative. And this is having conversations, and I can't take full credit for one of our vendors that we're working with on this. They were just like, "What if we do this?" And out of those kind of creative conversations, we're like, "Hey, let's talk it through and let's see until the engineer tells us it's impossible. Even then, we might push the limits." And I think to be a market maker, we can't just nobody's ever done that, right? Or sales aren't going for that. We know based on the calls that we receive, we're usually, as brokers, we end up being the first call that companies make on trying to find location. And so we've got a pretty accurate pulse on the amount of demand coming. And I can tell you the number of parties that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the space to be built. And we're not really seeing a slowdown either, given 2023. There's definitely hesitation, but I would say now, after going through COVID and what we experienced through that, there's less chaos here. So I think we're getting very comfortable in the chaos and uncertainty.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Creative Real Estate Copy. We're an integrative marketing firm specializing in thought leadership content, public relations, and turnkey web design and content specifically for the commercial real estate industry. Creative Real Estate Copy helps CRE startups and established firms drive growth by building their brand positions, credibility, revenue, and capital flow. Learn more at creativerealestatecopy.com or call 888-337-0150.
Let's talk about trends. What challenges do you see in the industry and how are you adapting?
This has still been a consistent trend in that there's such demand for those value add and opportunistic deals that we're not seeing price dropping, right? Office is experiencing lesser demand, but I think there is still even enough demand that it's propping up that pricing to some degree. I know the offers that we've received, well, I mean, that's going to be 25 cents on the dollar. It's like, why? And depending on what part of the town it is, some of the office assets are maybe 60 cents on the dollar, right? So it is definitely a discount. But the counter to that message, and I think this is speaking to Jacksonville a little bit, is there's actually been some record office sales, large multi-storied office building sales in the city within the last 12 months, primarily due to the owner users. Now, obviously, there's usually an investment sale, or investment aspect to that. But these are B+, A- assets that are selling for the $120 to $140 a square foot. So I would say that's holding consistent with their previous value for those quality of assets, whereas other assets are seeing decline in those kind of the sale valuation. Industrial, I would say that's steadily increasing still, despite that.
Let's talk about leadership. How would you describe your leadership style and how do you motivate your team?
Collaborative. It's a humbling experience being in brokerage world. And I would say, and we're not just motivated by money, right? That helps. But I would say that we just make sure to embrace, we say this in the military, we don't say it here, but we embrace the suck a little bit in that we make sure and find ways to have fun with what we do. And it definitely helps to have the right personalities. That's when you have the right personalities and it's the right fit, you don't have to try with leadership, really, in my opinion. And so with it, we've got everybody with the right attitude. Whenever there's obstacles or issues, everybody jumps in. And I would say that with leadership with Duke, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of fantastic leaders and managing directors at the firms that I have. But what stands out with Duke and how we all operate is that just a very humble way of operating. Admitting our mistakes and to be able to learn from those and be able to move on, I think is a huge critical component in how we operate so that we're not repeating over and over the same mistake.
Let's talk a little bit about marketing. Now, this first question is a little bit leading, but I always like to ask, 'cause I like to get your perspective. How important is marketing in commercial real estate?
The brokerage side, we're in the business of being marketing experts, right? So we have to be market experts. I've learned that a flashy brochure isn't really what sells the property, right? But having a poorly put together piece of marketing, so when it comes to physical marketing or electronic, If it's not done well, then you can definitely detract from that. And so then that's where I would say the majority of my day is in a marketing mindset.
Okay, now as far as getting prospects, what channels are you finding most effective? What delivers the best ROI of all the marketing methods that you can leverage?
I would say it's really email. I mean, it's as much as I don't want it to be, email
Mhm.
is the best lead generation side of things. We've done the letters in the past, and we continue to do that. But I would say where we get the most, and I would say the website too, right? So that we've got a lot of traffic on that. Obviously, there's the CoStar platform that you can get leads out of that. To answer your question, I would say more organic, it would be the website and our email blasts.
Are you finding that there's any innovative technology tools that are facilitating your business and your growth in commercial real estate?
I'm reading articles. I'm staying in tune with some market leaders in this. With digitization, we can improve efficiencies and processes. But again, you can come up with a very smart contract or very smart marketing material, and that's not what sells the thing. It's that human interaction. So I've even had a little fun with the chat GPT and to ask questions. And obviously, part of it is I don't know how to interact with it enough just yet. But where it was intuitive to me to have that help, I wasn't that impressed with it. And so with it, I think there is something to be said about incorporating technology and with AI, but in my experience with systems and particularly with like software related, and I had a little bit of that in the military, is it's all about the quality of inputs, right? You can have a fancy Excel sheet, and even back in college, I mathematically modeled the diesel engine. But if you don't have the right inputs, or if it's not
Mhm.
quality data that goes in and obviously you clear out noise, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's the data has to be efficiently inputted and of quality data. And I think there's a question of that quality data. Is it really quality enough to really get that true answer that we need? That's why I hesitate to really depend on those things because getting the latest tax information off the tax appraiser's website, as good as they are, or even on deed information, the issues, errors, and technology is
Mhm.
limited there, even in today's terms. So I look forward to what that could bring for the industry, looking to forward to adapting and finding smart ways to integrate that.
Let's talk about branding. What's the most crucial element in positioning your brand? In other words, what's the most important thing to shaping your prospects and your customers' perception of you?
It's really going to be the results, right? So it's okay, cool. You can sell a building, but what does that mean? What does that translate to? And it's really being able to communicate the wins of our clients, learning how to sell myself. It was ultimately just communicate the wins of your clients, right? And then that way, one, it's telling the story of the services we do, and the wins for our clients are going to be, and it's not always monetary as well. It's bringing something back to life. And there's a few community projects that we're considering. So it's not necessarily a full on 7 cap or 8, it's going to be different outside that normal investment requirements. And so I would say the most crucial element in the positioning of our brand is going to be better communicating the wins of our clients.
All right, let's look out 10 years. Where do you see your brand going? What position are you going to take in the marketplace?
I would say it's just a further fleshing out of our top, I call it our A list of clients, right? So if somebody calls and they say, hey, be in this market, this city, we're doing this, it's having the trust and just hopping on a plane and meeting them where the need is without question. And obviously we've got clients we do that for. And I think it's just furthering building that book of business of clients that fit for us and the value and the services we provide. So then we're providing the maximum value.
Now we come up to the conclusion. How can listeners learn more about you?
It's going to be Jake Ammon on LinkedIn. And then our website is www.acrei.com, Addison Commercial Estate Incorporated. Jake at acrei.com is the best way to reach out to me.
What is one closing insight you'd like to share with executives targeting growth?
In this digital age, not to move away from that human in-person personal contact. There's clients that I still have never met in person, and that's definitely added to my business and the growth there. But I would say that assuming everything's going to go that direction, I would say is not an accurate statement based on what's needed to build a foundation for growth for the future.
Thank you for joining us today, Jake. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to RE EXEC TL. Please like and subscribe for updates on upcoming episodes. Share the inspiration.